Hey guys, Darren here again from Global Garage. Just thought I'd make a controller repair video today. Well, we're going to attempt to repair this controller because it's pretty common, and you'll probably find yourself in need to repair controllers and clean them up and get them a bit more responsive. So I thought this was a good example, the old SEGA Saturn Model 1 controller. So I personally don't like these controllers. I think they're really bad and just poorly made, and they just don't work properly. I much prefer the Model 2 controller, like the typical, the Japanese one. It's actually a really nice controller, and they're just much better in every way. So, but if you've got your hands on one of these originals and you need to fix it, I'll show you what you need to do. So, typically what goes wrong with these things is the top buttons up here they really just don't do much. It does, like if you push it that way, it does click, you can hear it rock, but I don't know, they've always been really shit, those buttons, compared to the newer style, just much nicer. So we're going to take a look at that and see if we can improve it physically. And then this one's kind of popped out of its position, so it's all, it's pretty screwed up. So all you need to do is just flip it over and take out the 5 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've already just popped them out. They're just little tiny little black ones. Just a Phillips head. They're all the same, so you can just put them aside. So then we pull this apart. Not sure if it was the top or the bottom that comes off. Okay, so it's the back that comes off. There's nothing up my sleeve, nothing in the back case there. You can take the opportunity to clean these as well, just give them a good scrub. And then what you're left with is this sort of mess. So it's an interesting sort of board design, 3 parts of the board, all on different angles. It's quite trippy actually. It's not too bad an idea, but what we're concerned about is these buttons really. So if you look at how they sort of work, and I'll try and get you a zoom on that. There you go. There's a little micro switch just in here, a little switch, and that's probably okay. But when these rock forward, it looks like they pivot on just the 2 edge points, sort of there and there. That's probably fine, but there's quite a gap there, isn't there? There's probably a 3mm gap between where the button sort of doesn't do anything. It just sort of floats around until it actually makes contact, then it clicks. So in my mind, we really should probably fill that gap with some hot glue or something, or just extend that little bit of grey plastic, or even on the top of the button. I don't know, they must have made it this way for a reason, but this one was pretty much destined for the rubbish bin. So look, I'm gonna give it a go, and if it doesn't work, yeah, haven't really lost much. So let's just take it apart a bit further. We'll lift out that cable strain relief, lift out the pads, put all that aside for a second. So just on this side of things, before we get to the physical stuff, I think what you need to do is just clean the contacts while you're here. So lift all that off and lift that side off. Then you just get some isopropyl alcohol, and we'll clean up these contact points on the back of the buttons and also on the boards, and just make the whole thing work a bit nicer. So that's the responsive sort of fix. When controllers stop responding, and you're kind of pushing buttons really hard and they don't work, it's because the backs of these little pads and the board are all just dirty. So I'll just get some isopropyl and we'll give that a clean. Okay, so I've got some isopropyl alcohol, some cotton tips, and just the plastic lid that the cotton tips come in. What I like to do is just spray a fair bit into the lid. That bottle's almost empty. I'll get another one of those. It's really handy, that stuff. Just wet the cotton bud, and look, just go through each piece and just wet them all down to begin with, and then give them a good scrub. Yeah, you'll see all the black stuff coming off. All that's just is nasty stuff that stops your games working. So just kind of go, look at the size of that. Just go through each one and really clean it up. You'll have to go through multiple cotton buds and a lot of alcohol. So let me just keep going with this for a second. And then we get on to the pads. So using this big end, just wet them all, just really get them all soaked up, and then I'll probably actually go to a new cotton bud now and just give them a really good scrub. Yeah, and then kind of just turn a quarter, do the next one, turn a quarter again. You know, you really got to let, I'll try again on the other side. So much stuff comes off these, it's ridiculous. So yeah, it's starting to come clean now. Pretty much keep doing it until no more comes off. Right, so those 4 are okay. We'll move over to this one. Yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? New cotton bud. More alcohol. And just give them another quick go. Wow, yeah, it's a lot of stuff coming off. So you just go through all that. I'll continue to do this, and yeah, don't forget the underside of these pads up here of the 6 buttons. Definitely do all that. It's really important. Need more alcohol. You really go through that stuff. I think I do have another bottle actually. I'll have to just dig that up in a second. So, you know, isopropyl alcohol is pretty much like a solvent. It's at that sort of concentrate, you know, right up into the 90% range, like maybe even 99% alcohol. It just sort of cuts away all this carbon and corrosion and buildup of all sorts of stuff. So, you know, in the electronics world, it's definitely regarded as one of the best cleaning sort of solutions. There are others, but yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. So just give that a really good clean. It's probably enough for that one. Throw that bud away, and I'll just do another round across them all and just make sure they're coming up clean. Like they've dried off now, but just make sure we're getting pretty clean surface. Isopropyl dries really fast, so yeah, it's coming up pretty clean. So we'll leave that one there. Oh, wait a second. There was just the underside of this start button, I think. So yeah, don't forget that. I almost did. Just underneath there, that little tiny center pin, that also needs the clean. I guess you don't push start that much compared to the buttons and the D-pad, but yeah, just give it a clean while you're here. You know, that was the pad there. So yeah. All right, that's it for the cleaning. So we'll put all that aside and we'll reassemble that in a second. Let's now come back to our controller. What we're going to aim to do is, you know, we'll just inspect these little sort of rails in here. I don't know what you call them, like little channels where it sits. It's a bit dark. Sorry about the light. They actually look in really good shape, so there's nothing stopping that rotating at all. That's actually really good. And you know, I'd expect these plastic pins like just here to snap off and really, you know, up there as well, and just make the whole button really loose. But these are actually in good shape, so that's nice to know. We don't need to pull this apart. That's all fine. It's just plastic. Obviously, we'll give all this a wash. I'll do it off camera though. That's kind of boring. You don't need to see that. But yeah, we're going to extend the pins here. So these 2 grey pins that make contact with our top switches, I think that's what I'm going to aim to do. So let me just get the glue gun. I've had that warming up, and we'll see if we can put a bit of glue on these things. Okay, so I've just put a mat under the parts. I didn't want to get glue all over the bench. So, you know, this old mat's really copped a beating. It's got solder marks on it and all sorts of stuff, but that's what I use to protect the bench. So I've got my glue gun. It's a simple Bosch one, just with some glue sticks inserted, and that's red hot. It's ready to go. So now I've never done this before, but what I'm thinking is we sort of keep the button quite vertical. We aim to put a bit of glue on top and just hopefully it's going to set. You know what, I've got a little fan right next to me. I might turn that on, have some air blowing across this just so it cools a bit quicker. Alright, so let's put some glue on. Just a small amount. Now we can obviously trim this later, so just kind of push it into the mold of that. And do what you need to do to sort of keep that vertical. There's a plane going overhead. Sorry about that noise. And let's do the other one. Really get that in there and then lift the gun up nice and vertical. I think that should do it. I'll get the fan onto that. Bit of a breeze. That should dry it nice and quickly. You can see this one over here is already gone. That one there's already gone quite cloudy, so that's already drying nicely. This one's still clear, but it's drying pretty quick. So I'm sure you've all used hot glue guns before, but you know this stuff is it's boiling hot. Like last time I used this, I actually got some on my fingers and it burnt straight away. So yeah, it's pretty effective, but you know, use common sense. And that's probably it. I think that's probably drying now. Yeah, they're going pretty hard. So if we have a look, we've effectively just extended that bit of plastic by a couple of mil. That's kind of the goal of that. Just gotta make sure none of this here gets jammed in the controller. We're more than likely gonna have to snip that off, but we'll let it dry properly. Okay, so with the glue set, you know, let's just have a look at this. Get some cutters and have a look. Look, it's definitely added a little bit of height. I think the trick would probably be to get more glue down sort of in there actually. That'll give it be a bit more stronger, much stronger actually. So yeah, you just trim off the excess and let's just leave them big and chunky for now. We'll see what happens. You just snap all that stringy glue off, maybe trim that edge there just to make sure that runs smoothly and that edge there a little bit. Kind of cut that into a bit of a, you see that? Yeah, a bit of an angle. Do the same for this one. Just tidy that up a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then let's just put them in and see what happens. It's probably just one side at a time to see how they feel. So, is it in? Yeah, it's really tight actually. It's probably too big, gone too far. Too much glue. All right, so we'll trim that down. May not be a very successful repair, this one, but we'll keep persisting. All right, so that one definitely has to be trimmed down. And this one, yeah, it's somewhat successful. All right, let me reapply some glue and then we'll come back in a sec. So this time I just reapplied the glue. I put it in that sort of position like that and just sort of spread it right down the plastic in both directions, right behind. So there's a little bit of a lift. Sorry, just drifted off camera. There's a little bit of a lift, maybe 1 or 2 mil, but it's gonna be a much stronger structure now. So hopefully that'll make a difference. Okay, so the glue's all dried now on these pieces. I'll just make sure you can see that. So I ended up with that sort of glue sort of configuration like that, just wrapping around the edges and a bit of a flat top there. I'll just cut that down a millimeter or so, and you know, same with that one. That's a much larger blob of glue, but just adds up more strength, I think, and yeah, it doesn't break off. It's quite nice. So I don't know if the height's right on this, but I've kind of just made it about 2 millimeters more than the actual original post. So let's go ahead and put all this back together. You know, so off camera, I've also washed these parts. They're a little bit scratched up, but they're all washed and cleaned. We did our pads earlier, so let's fit all this back together. It actually goes on that side. That one goes in there. Just make sure they rock nicely and they're in the right position. And you don't bump them like that. Okay, put in our start button. That only goes in one way. It's got little holes and little posts. And we put our button cluster in. I've washed this as well, cleaned it all off. Cleaned it all up and dried it. And we've also cleaned all those pads up, so that should be all good to go. Drop that in. It sits kind of over the button, so you want to do it in that order. Ooh, almost dropped that. This one goes like that. Just sits on top, over that pin over there. And then we can put our board on. Now, at this point, I always like to give these things one last spray of isopropyl, just a thin coat just before I put it together. It's okay that there's a bit of overspray in there. It's completely fine. Just gives it, you know, one last shot to keep it all clean. All right, so 3 fingers like that, one on each board. Drop the cable strained thing in its place. Make sure you got nothing jammed up. Now let's have a look at the operation. So that seems to rock quite nicely. So does that one. That one's actually a little bit bigger, so it's almost touching it. That one's got a bit more of a gap. It's a bit louder, that clicker as well. You know what, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. It's an improvement. So, you know, we could fiddle with this a bit longer. You could add some more glue, take some more glue away, and you could get the heights all right, but I think that's pretty right. So I'm gonna put this back together. Let's put that on top. Kind of have to wiggle it a bit, I think, to get that to sit together. There we go. And just make sure all your seams are all nice, like that one there seems a bit out. Or maybe, I'm not sure. No, it probably just needs a screw. So then if we just turn it over, yeah. So that button clicks quite nicely, and so does that one. So there you go, we've improved it. These things are just a shit design. You want to push like down into the button, like on a modern controller, but you kind of have to push down and away. It's kind of catch that lip there. That's the whole idea of these things. And if you use them like that, yeah, you probably need to hold it like that actually. Seems to work quite well. So that little bit of glue, like maybe that extra 2 millimeters, seemed to do wonders and make all the difference. So, you know, that's it. I'm not going to mess around with this any longer. It's just not worth it. It's a cheap controller, and I think we've made it a little bit better, and just saved it. We can probably use that on a console or sell it on. So that's it, guys. I'm going to just wrap this up by putting the screws back in, and I'll let you go. You don't have to watch me do that. That's not very fun. So, you know, as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll aim to put up another video here soon. And that's it, the finished product. I just put a bit of Armor All automotive sort of plastic cleaner on these, and yeah, they've come up quite well. So yeah, clicky click. I had 2 of them. Yeah, I didn't show you that, but I had 2 to repair. All right, guys.